What if the universe is not built on logic, but on contradiction? Imagine yourself drifting across a silent ocean beneath a sky filled with stars, calm, peaceful, familiar. But beneath your feet, hidden in darkness, stretches something far stranger. At the surface, simple riddles and playful puzzles float gently, inviting curiosity. But the deeper you go, the darker it gets. This iceberg isn't made of ice, it's made of paradoxes. Paradoxes, those mind-bending loops that twist logic, shatter certainty, and challenge everything you believe is true. At the top, they amuse. At the middle, they unsettle. But at the deepest layers, paradoxes unravel your very sense of self, of time, of reality. Tonight, we begin our descent. 30 paradoxes, arranged in layers from everyday curiosities to cosmic mysteries, waiting quietly beneath the surface. Each one beckons, each one defies intuition, and each one leaves you changed. By the end of this journey, you might question the solidity of the ground beneath your feet, the reliability of your memories, even the boundaries of your identity. So ask yourself now, before you go deeper, are you willing to lose yourself to find something greater? Take a deep breath, look into the abyss below. Because this iceberg isn't melting, it's growing, and you're about to descend. Welcome to the iceberg of paradoxes. Welcome back to the hollow room. The barber paradox. Imagine a small village. In this village, there is a barber. He is known for one simple rule. I shave everyone who does not shave themselves, and only those. At first glance, it seems tidy, logical, even admirable. But then, someone asks a single question. Who shaves the barber? If he shaves himself, then by his own rule, he must not shave himself. But if he doesn't shave himself, then he must shave himself. A contradiction, a loop with no exit. The barber can neither shave himself nor avoid doing it. This isn't just a quirky riddle. It's a rupture in the fabric of logic, like a paper cut in reality itself. And it invites a deeper discomfort. What other rules we follow seem logical until they're tested. We live by categories. We draw lines. But the barber reminds us, some lines, once drawn, turn inward and cut the hand that drew them. It's easy to dismiss the paradox as a trick of wording. But at its heart, it's about self-reference, about systems that refer to themselves. And once a system contains itself, strange things begin to happen. Think of laws that govern how laws are made. Think of nines that reflect on their own thinking. Think of societies trying to define what defines them. When a rule tries to govern its own creator, the edges blur. Clarity collapses. And that collapse isn't just intellectual. It's emotional. It's existential. The barber paradox isn't about barbers. It's about the fragile elegance of the systems we build, and how quickly they break when they look in the mirror. Welcome to the surface of the iceberg, where logic smiles, but something unsettling stirs beneath. The liar paradox. This sentence is false. Imagine someone tells you just that. Not a lie, not a truth, just this sentence is false. Now pause. Think about it. If the sentence is telling the truth, then it must be false, because that's what it says. But if it's false, then it's actually true. You're caught in a loop, a perfect contradiction with no escape. This is the liar paradox, and it's been haunting philosophers since ancient Greece. At first glance, it seems like a word game, a riddle, but it digs deep into the limits of language, logic, and truth itself. We rely on language to reflect reality, to say what is.
But the liar paradox exposes a dangerous glitch. Words can refer to themselves, and when they do, truth becomes slippery. Think of it like two mirrors facing each other, infinite reflections, each one contradicting the next. In the real world, this paradox shows up more than you might expect. In AI systems, in law, even in our own thoughts. When we say, "I'm lying right now," what are we doing? Lying or telling the truth? The paradox doesn't just break logic. It breaks trust in logic's very foundations. Maybe, just maybe, not everything can be labeled as simply true or false. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the universe has room for uncertainty, even in what we believe is absolutely certain.
The friendship paradox. You may think you're less popular than your friends, and strangely, you might be right. This isn't insecurity talking, it's math. It's called the friendship paradox, and it reveals something quietly unsettling about how we see ourselves in relation to others. Imagine a group of people, each with their own number of friends. Statistically, the more friends someone has, the more likely they are to be your friend. Why? Because popular people show up in more friend lists. So, on average, your friends have more friends than you do. Not because you're lonely, but because you're comparing yourself to the most visible people in your circle. It's like standing in a crowd where everyone seems taller, until you realize you're standing in a dip in the ground. But it goes deeper than just friend counts. We compare lives, not just numbers. Their parties, their travels, their followers. And each scroll reinforces the illusion that we are somehow less. The paradox warps perception, creating loneliness in rooms full of connection. Even more curiously, this isn't just psychological. The friendship paradox influences how diseases spread, how ideas go viral, even how we feel in communities. If the most connected people are more likely to be your reference point, then your entire reality becomes distorted, tilted toward the extremes. This illusion can quietly shape your identity. You think you're the outlier, that you're the one who's behind. But maybe you're just seeing the world through a biased lens, one that favors the loudest echoes. What if you're not falling behind? What if you're simply surrounded by the most connected nodes in the web? What if your loneliness isn't yours alone, but a shared echo of millions, all comparing themselves to the highlight reels of others? Maybe that's the true paradox. In a world more connected than ever, we feel more alone. The paradox of choice. More choices should make us freer. More options should make us happier. But what if the opposite is true? In a world of infinite variety, where every product, every identity, every possible future is only a click away, we find ourselves not liberated but paralyzed. Welcome to the paradox of choice. You walk into a store to buy toothpaste. There are 20 types: whitening, sensitive, herbal, charcoal, anti-cavity. The abundance seems empowering, but suddenly you freeze. Which is best? What if you choose wrong? Now amplify that across your life. What career to pursue? What city to live in? Who to love? What to believe? Modern freedom offers limitless paths. But each path not taken becomes a ghost whispering "what if" behind every step you take. The more options we have, the more pressure we feel to choose perfectly. And when outcomes disappoint, we don't just feel regret, we feel blame. Because with so many possibilities, it must have been our fault. Worse still, we often end up choosing nothing at all. Drowning in opportunity, we hesitate, postpone, scroll endlessly, searching for clarity that never comes. And so a strange thing happens. Too much choice becomes a form of imprisonment. We dream of freedom only to find ourselves lost in the maze of our own making. But here's the twist. It's not just about consumer goods or digital menus. This paradox eats away at the soul. It breeds anxiety, indecision, dissatisfaction. It makes us question our instincts, doubt our past, fear our future. So, maybe happiness isn't found in having it all, but in knowing when enough is enough. Maybe the path to peace is not more options, but fewer. Or perhaps the real freedom isn't in choosing perfectly, but in acceptingly. The tolerance paradox. Everyday mind-benders. Imagine a society that values tolerance above all. It welcomes every voice, every belief, every difference. But then, something happens. A new voice enters, one that preaches hate, one that says others don't belong, one that refuses to tolerate tolerance. Now the society faces a dilemma. Should it tolerate the intolerant? If it does, the intolerant may grow stronger, loud enough, powerful enough, and one day they may silence everyone else. But if the society chooses not to tolerate the intolerant, isn't that itself intolerance? This is the tolerance paradox. First proposed by philosopher Karl Popper, the paradox warns us unlimited tolerance may lead to the end of tolerance altogether. To protect a free and open society, we might have to draw the line against those who would destroy it. But here's where it gets harder. Who decides what's intolerant? Where is the line drawn? And what if drawing it turns you into the very thing you feared? Like a virus hiding in a cure, the paradox teaches us that some contradictions don't have clean answers, only hard trade-offs. So next time someone says we should tolerate everything, pause, look deeper. Ask yourself, are we preserving openness or opening the gates to something darker? Some walls aren't built to divide, they're built to defend. The Sorites paradox, heap problem. Let's say you have a heap of sand. Now, if you remove just one grain, surely it's still a heap. Remove another, still a heap. You repeat this process grain by grain. Eventually, you're left with one grain. Is that still a heap? No? Then when exactly did it stop being a heap? Welcome to the Sorites paradox, also known as the paradox of the heap, a quiet unraveling of logic, disguised as a harmless question. It's not about sand, really. It's about vagueness, and how our language breaks down when asked to be precise. Words like heap, bald, or tall are inherently fuzzy. There's no clear point where not bald becomes bald. No exact line where not tall becomes tall. Yet we speak as if these boundaries exist. We build laws, define identities, and draw moral lines, all with words just as vague. It's like trying to draw a sharp line in fog. Now imagine this applied to people. At what point does someone become rich? How many lies make a person dishonest? How many tiny harms become injustice? The Sorites paradox doesn't just challenge semantics. It erodes the stability of our categories. It whispers that perhaps many truths we cling to are built on slippery slopes, not solid ground. And it leaves us with a dilemma. If we demand precision, we fracture everyday meaning. But if we accept vagueness, how do we reason with consistency?
Some philosophers try to solve this with fuzzy logic, a system where truth exists in degrees, not absolutes. Others embrace contextual boundaries, accepting that language works not because it's perfect, but because we agree on enough to get by. But the paradox remains, haunting in its simplicity. So next time someone draws a line in the sand, ask them, which grain made the difference? Or, better yet, ask yourself. Because in a world full of gradual changes, the biggest shifts are often the ones we don't notice, until we've already crossed the line.
The birthday paradox. You walk into a room with 22 strangers. Nothing unusual, right? Now ask yourself, what are the odds that 2 of them share the same birthday? Your brain whispers, that must be rare. After all, there are 365 days in a year. Surely coincidences like that don't just happen. But that's the illusion. In truth, the chance that 2 people in a group of just 23 share a birthday is over 50%. This is the birthday paradox. Not a paradox in the strictest sense, but a glitch in how we perceive probability. Our minds are trained to think linearly, not combinatorially. We tend to compare ourselves to others, as if asking, do you share a birthday with me? But that's the wrong question. What really matters is every possible pairing. In a group of 23, there are 253 unique pairs, and each one is a chance for coincidence. The more people, the more invisible strings connect them. It's a reminder that complexity grows fast, much faster than intuition suggests. It's not the number of people, but the number of relationships between them that bends the odds. And this isn't just about birthdays. It's how we misjudge the likelihood of patterns in the chaos of life. We underestimate how often strangers will overlap, how easily data leaks, how rapidly systems become unpredictable. In a world of increasing connections between people, machines, thoughts, timelines, the birthday paradox hums beneath the surface, whispering, coincidence is more common than you think. So next time you feel a strange synchronicity, maybe it isn't strange at all. Maybe you're just glimpsing the hidden network of probabilities that holds everything together. And maybe, just maybe, the universe is smaller than it appears. The 2 envelopes paradox. You're given 2 sealed envelopes. One contains exactly twice as much money as the other. You choose one, but before opening it, you're offered a deal. You can switch. And then it begins, the loop. You think, if I picked the envelope with X, the other might have 2X. But if I picked 2X, the other has X. So maybe I should switch. Then you try to calculate the expected value. But something strange happens. The math always tells you to switch. No matter which envelope you pick, the other one seems better. So you switch. Then switch again. Then again. And suddenly you're trapped. Not by greed, but by logic. This is the 2 envelopes paradox, a riddle that breaks your sense of rationality. The more you think, the more irrational your thoughts become. It's not just a flaw in probability. It's a crack in the architecture of decision-making. Your brain tries to optimize, but optimization here leads to madness, because you're using incomplete information to chase certainty that doesn't exist. It's the paradox of the unknown disguised as known, a temptation to act even when there's no reason to. And this isn't just about money. It's how we live. We switch jobs, relationships, cities, always convinced the other envelope is better. That possibility holds more value than reality. But in chasing the better option, we risk endless hesitation, constant second-guessing, an illusion of movement masking our paralysis. So what do? Open one and live with it? Or keep switching? Forever?
Some say the solution lies in stopping the calculation. Others say the paradox is the answer, that some choices aren't about better or worse, but about letting go. Because maybe the greatest trap isn't choosing wrong. Maybe it's never choosing at all.
The lottery paradox. Imagine this. A national lottery is announced. 1,000,000 tickets, one winning number. The odds are impossibly low, just 1 in a million. You know this. You've always known this. So when your friend says, "My ticket is not the winner," you nod. That's reasonable. Then another friend says the same, and another, and another. And you agree with each one of them. Of course their tickets won't win. The odds are microscopic. But then comes the paradox. If you believe each individual ticket is a loser, then by extension, you must believe no ticket will win. But that can't be right. You also believe one ticket will win. That's how lotteries work. One winner, 1,000,000 chances. Certainty and doubt tangled into the same thread. Welcome to the lottery paradox, where rational belief turns on itself like a snake biting its tail. Philosophers use this paradox to challenge the boundaries of belief, logic, and knowledge. It forces you to ask, if you believe many things individually, does it mean you must believe them collectively? You trust each individual guess to be safe, but collectively, they lead to contradiction. It's like building a house brick by brick, only to realize the structure collapses under the weight of coherence. Some say this is just a flaw in probabilistic reasoning. Others see something deeper, a crack in the foundation of how we justify belief at all. Can you rationally believe that each individual claim is true, even if their sum must be false? And in your own life, how often do you live by beliefs that, when taken together, no longer make sense? You trust your actions, your hopes, your judgments, individually. But what happens when you step back, look at the whole picture, and it doesn't add up? We live in fragments, yet seek coherence. We act with certainty while swimming in uncertainty. And sometimes all it takes is a lottery ticket to unravel what we think we know about reason itself. So the question remains, do you believe your ticket will lose? Or are you just playing along with the odds, hoping to win the paradox? Newcomb's paradox. Can you outsmart a prophet? You enter a quiet room. On the table in front of you are two boxes. Box A contains $1,000, guaranteed. Box B may contain $1,000,000, or nothing at all. You have two choices. Take both boxes, or take only box B. Seems simple, right? Here's the twist. This game was set by a perfect predictor, a super-intelligent being who has never been wrong. It scanned your brain, read your thoughts, calculated your tendencies before you walked into the room. If it predicted you would take only box B, it placed $1,000,000 inside. If it predicted you would take both boxes, it left box B empty. Now it's your turn. No tricks, no second chances. What do you choose? Rationality versus faith. The rational mind says, the prediction has already been made. I can't change the past. Box A has $1,000 for sure. Box B either has the money or it doesn't. So I'll take both. It's strictly more. But everyone who took only box B ended up walking away with $1,000,000. And those who took both got just $1,000. So where's the paradox? It's not just about money.
It's a battle between free will and determinism, choice and prediction, your agency and the belief that it's all pre-written. If the predictor is always right, your choice was already decided. But if you truly have free will, how could it possibly know? So, what will you choose? One box or both? Or maybe the real question is, did you ever choose at all? Welcome to Newcomb's paradox, where your freedom may just be an illusion.
The unexpected hanging paradox. A man is sentenced to death. The judge gives the execution order in an unusual form. You will be hanged at noon on one weekday next week, but the exact day will be a surprise. You will not know the day of the execution until the executioner arrives at your cell. The prisoner returns to his cell confused, but also hopeful. If the execution must be a surprise, maybe, just maybe, it can't happen at all. He begins to reason. If I make it to Thursday night without being hanged, then Friday is the only day left. But that wouldn't be a surprise, would it? I'd know it's coming. So, the hanging can't be on Friday. Then he thinks further. If Friday is ruled out, then Thursday becomes the last possible day. If I'm still alive by Wednesday night, then Thursday becomes predictable. So, it can't be Thursday either. One by one, he eliminates the days. Wednesday, predictable. Tuesday, obvious. Monday, certainly not. In his mind, the execution becomes impossible. The logic is flawless. He goes to sleep each night more confident than the last. They can't hang me, not without violating the judge's condition. But then on Wednesday morning, the guards come. He is dragged from his cell completely unprepared. He's shocked. It is a surprise. The sentence is carried out. The condition is fulfilled, and the logic collapses. This is the unexpected hanging paradox, a contradiction born from the very act of reasoning. The prisoner uses logic to escape death, but the logic itself becomes the trap. How can something be both impossible and inevitable? How can the act of knowing undo itself? It's not just a puzzle. It's a fracture in how we understand time, knowledge, and causality. The paradox forces us to ask, can future knowledge invalidate the future itself? Does awareness cancel uncertainty, or does it only pretend to? Some see it as a flaw in semantics. Others see it as a flaw in consciousness. But perhaps the flaw lies deeper, in the assumption that knowledge can protect us from fate. The prisoner believed that knowing too much would spare him. But the universe doesn't work that way. Sometimes the most dangerous certainty, well, is thinking we've figured it all out. So next time you find comfort in your own reasoning, next time the pieces seem to fit too well, ask yourself, what are you not seeing? Because true surprises only exist when you're sure they're impossible. And in the hollow room, that's where the deepest truths hide. The prisoner's dilemma, when logic betrays trust. Two suspects, one crime, no hard evidence. You and your partner are arrested and interrogated in separate rooms. Each of you is given a choice: betray the other or stay silent. If both stay silent, you each get 1 year in prison. If one betrays and the other stays silent, the betrayer walks free and the silent one gets 5 years. If both betray each other, you both get 3 years. Logically, betraying seems safer, because no matter what the other person does, betraying always leads to less or equal time served. And yet, when both betray, you both lose more than if you had trusted each other.
This is the prisoner's dilemma, a paradox where rational self-interest leads to a worse collective outcome. A mirror held up to society, economics, war, and even love. Why do we so often choose betrayal even when cooperation is clearly better? Because trust is fragile. Because fear is louder than reason. Because in the dark room of uncertainty, survival feels safer than solidarity. Game theorists, economists, and philosophers have all wrestled with this paradox. And it's not just a thought experiment. It plays out in everyday life. Arms races, climate negotiations, rival companies undercutting each other. Even two people afraid to say, "I love you" first. So here's the haunting truth. In a world of logic, betrayal wins. In a world of trust, we all do. But the world doesn't decide. You do.
The grandfather paradox. What if you could travel back in time? Maybe you'd fix a mistake, meet someone lost, or just watch the world before it knew you. But let's say you went back for something darker. Let's say you decided to kill your grandfather. Not out of hate, but as an experiment. You step into the machine. You arrive decades before your birth. You find him, young, unaware, vulnerable, and then you end his life. But here's the paradox. If your grandfather dies before having children, then your parent is never born. And if your parent is never born, then neither are you. And if you don't exist, who pulled the trigger? This is the grandfather paradox. A simple, brutal thought experiment that breaks the rules of time and logic. It challenges the very idea that the past is a stable place, that events flow in one direction, safe from interference. Because if time is a line, you've just looped it into a knot. If you erase your own cause, how can your effect exist? Some say paradoxes like this prove that time travel is impossible. Others believe the universe would course correct. Maybe someone else becomes your grandfather. Or maybe your gun jams. Or maybe, just maybe, your action splits the universe. One branch where he lives, one where he dies. And you split across both, forever unsure which version is real. But maybe that's the point. Maybe time isn't linear at all. Maybe it's a web, fractured, tangled, bleeding into itself. And you? Just a thread tugging at a knot too large to comprehend. So, if you could go back, would you still do it? Or would you stare at the past and realize something far more disturbing? That the paradox isn't in the time machine. It's in you. The bootstrap paradox. What if cause and effect were not a straight line, but a loop? You travel back in time with a book. You hand it to a younger version of a famous author. That author studies the book, copies its content, and becomes celebrated for writing it. Decades later, you are born, grow up, and one day find that same book. You travel back to deliver it. But who wrote it? This is the bootstrap paradox, a closed loop in time where information, an object, or even a person exists without ever being created. It's named after the phrase, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, doing something self-generated, self-sustaining. But this is no motivational metaphor. This is a paradox that cracks open the nature of time itself. Imagine a violinist travels back in time and teaches Bach how to compose music. Bach then becomes the genius we know. Centuries later, the violinist learns Bach's music, and the cycle continues. But then, where did the music originate? Who was the true composer? The paradox lies not in the mechanics of time travel, but in the birth of information with no origin, a loop with no entry point, a cause with no cause. And that's what makes it unsettling.
You see, the bootstrap paradox tells us that reality may allow for effect without origin, knowledge that has never been discovered, yet somehow exists. If that's possible, how much of our world is an echo of something that never began? What if your thoughts, your inspirations, even your soul was part of such a loop? It's seductive, but dangerous, because if a book, a song, or even a person can exist without beginning, then maybe so can lies. Maybe so can illusions. Maybe we're all just bootstrapping ourselves.
Zeno's paradox, Achilles and the tortoise. Achilles, the swiftest of warriors, challenges a tortoise to a race. As a show of fairness, he allows the tortoise a head start. Now imagine this. By the time Achilles reaches the point where the tortoise began, the tortoise has moved a little farther. When Achilles gets to that new point, the tortoise has moved ahead again, however slightly. This goes on forever. Each time Achilles arrives at the tortoise's last position, the tortoise has inched forward. The gap shrinks, but it never vanishes. So, can Achilles ever catch the tortoise? It seems absurd. Of course he can. He's faster. But this ancient paradox by Zeno suggests otherwise, that between any 2 points in space or time, there are infinite divisions. And traversing infinity, step by step, should take forever. But if that's true, how do we move at all? The paradox isn't really about races. It's about our understanding of motion, space, and time. How can we reconcile continuous motion with infinite divisibility? Some say calculus solved it, that when we sum an infinite number of smaller and smaller distances, we get a finite total. That math defeats the paradox. But Zeno wasn't trying to break physics. He was trying to break our assumptions, to show that what feels simple, movement, progress, speed, isn't simple at all when you zoom in far enough. If everything is infinitely divisible, then every step we take is an illusion of completeness built on endless fragments. So perhaps Achilles doesn't beat the tortoise by logic, but by experience. Because reality may not follow the limits of our minds, but the rhythm of our bodies. And yet, the paradox remains. Are we really moving forward, or only believing we are? The twin paradox. Imagine 2 twins. One stays on Earth, the other boards a spaceship and travels near the speed of light into space. After some time, the traveling twin returns, but something strange has happened. They are no longer the same age. The twin who went on the journey is now younger than the one who stayed on Earth. This is the twin paradox. And it's not just a science fiction idea. It's a real consequence of Einstein's theory of special relativity. According to relativity, time is not absolute. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you relative to someone at rest. It's called time dilation. So, from Earth's perspective, the traveling twin's clock ticks more slowly. That explains why they age less. But here's the twist. From the traveler's point of view, isn't Earth the one that's moving away and coming back? Shouldn't the earthbound twin age less? This is where the paradox lies. Each twin sees the other as moving, so who's really younger? The resolution comes from asymmetry. The twin on the spaceship experiences acceleration when they turn around to come back. That breaks the symmetry of the situation. In relativity, constant motion is relative, but acceleration is not. The traveling twins' experience involves a shift in reference frames. That shift, especially the turnaround, means their experience of time is genuinely different. This isn't just theory, it's been tested. GPS satellites, for instance, move fast enough that their onboard clocks run slightly slower than clocks on Earth. We actually have to correct for this relativistic effect. So, the twin paradox is a paradox only because it challenges your intuition about time. And what it reveals is more profound than 2 people aging differently. It shows that time is not universal. It bends, it stretches, and depending on how you move, your life might tick at a different rhythm. What would it mean to live in a world where time itself is personal? You already do. Quantum suicide. Imagine a man, a physicist perhaps. He steps into a sealed chamber. Before him is a machine, quantum in nature, connected to a gun. Every time he presses a button, the gun has a 50% chance of firing and a 50% chance of clicking harmlessly. But this isn't Russian roulette. This is a thought experiment known as quantum suicide. Based on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, each press of the button splits reality in two. In one, the gun fires, and the man dies. In the other, it doesn't, and he lives. But from his own perspective, he only ever experiences the world in which he survives. Over and over. So while infinite versions of him perish in parallel universes, his consciousness continues along the single branch where he lives. To himself, he is immortal. But immortality here is not salvation. It's a prison of repetition, a loop of surviving what should not be survivable. This is the paradox. From an outside observer's point of view, he's dead half the time. But to himself, death is never experienced. So what, then, is death? If you never feel it, never know it, does it even exist? And if every outcome exists somewhere, what meaning does a single path hold? Quantum suicide forces us to question the finality of death and the illusion of choice. It unravels not just the idea of mortality, but the nature of personal identity itself. Because if you can only ever observe the version of reality where you survive, does your continued existence mean anything? Or are you just a ghost haunting the branches of an infinite tree, forever waking, never resting? The teletransportation paradox. You step into a sleek, humming chamber. The door seals behind you. Lights flicker. A voice says, "Teletransportation in progress." A moment later, flash. You're standing on Mars. Every molecule of your body perfectly reassembled. You feel fine. You remember Earth. You are you. But are you? Because here's the twist. To transport you, the machine had to scan and destroy your body on Earth, sending only the data to Mars, where a perfect copy was built from scratch. That copy thinks like you, feels like you. It remembers your first kiss, your childhood fears, your favorite food. But the original, you, was disintegrated. So who is standing on Mars? Is it you, resurrected from code? Or is it a copy who only thinks it's you? And if it's not you, did you just die? This is the teletransportation paradox, a challenge not just to our ideas of technology or travel, but to identity itself. Is the self bound to continuity of matter, or is it pattern, memories, thoughts, personality that defines you? Because if it's pattern, then you could be copied endlessly. Multiple yous, living separate lives. But if it's physical continuity, then every break, even sleep, anesthesia, teleportation, is a tiny death. And here's the darker thought. Every morning when you wake up, is the person who opens their eyes truly the same you who fell asleep? This paradox isn't science fiction. It's a doorway to one of the deepest fears we rarely name. That you might be more fragile, more replaceable than you think. Schrödinger's cat. Picture this, a sealed steel box. Inside, a single atom, a fragile vial of poison, a Geiger counter, and a cat. A quiet, breathing creature, unaware it has become a thought experiment for the boundaries of reality. The setup is simple. If the atom decays, a purely random quantum event, the Geiger counter detects it. The detector triggers a hammer. The hammer shatters the vial. The poison is released. The cat dies. But if the atom doesn't decay, nothing happens. The cat lives. Now here's the part that breaks your brain.
According to quantum mechanics, until the system is observed, the atom exists in a superposition. It is both decayed and not decayed, which means the cat in that isolated moment is both dead and alive. Not metaphorically, mathematically. This isn't just a trick of language. It's the logic of the quantum world. The wave function that describes the system contains both outcomes, two contradictory realities coexisting in a delicate quantum blur. Only when someone opens the box, when an observer collapses the wave function, does one reality crystallize. Only then do we see the cat as definitively alive or definitively dead. But what does this say about reality itself? Is the universe undecided until we look? Are we not just observers, but creators of truth? If nothing is real until it is observed, what about the rest of your life? Your choices, your future, your unlived dreams? Are they just wave functions too? Ghosts of possibility waiting for your attention? And then the question grows deeper. What exactly counts as an observer? Is it a human eye, a consciousness, a machine? If a tree falls in a quantum forest and no one is there to measure the waveform collapse, does it fall at all? You see, Schrödinger's cat was never about a cat. It's about the terrifying idea that reality is not solid, that existence may be observer-dependent, that until something is seen, it remains a phantom, an unrealized branch in a vast multiverse of outcomes. And you? Maybe you too are in a box of unobserved potential, alive in one world, dead in another, joyful in one path, lost in another, and the person you become depends on where you look. So maybe the box isn't steel after all. Maybe it's your mind. And the real paradox is this: what if the act of watching is what gives life meaning? The observer's paradox. You walk into a room. It's silent, still, until you step forward. The floor creaks. A fly darts past. The clock ticks louder. You begin to feel like the room is noticing you. But here's the catch. It always was. Welcome to the observer's paradox, the strange truth that observing something can fundamentally change it. In quantum mechanics, this isn't just a metaphor. When scientists try to measure particles like electrons or photons, they often find that the act of measuring alters the outcome. It's as if the particle waits to decide what it is until someone looks. This defies classical logic. How can merely looking at something change its nature? Yet this paradox doesn't just belong to physics. It lives in our social world too. Imagine you're asked to act naturally while being filmed. You can't. The awareness of being watched shapes your behavior. Suddenly, you're no longer living, you're performing. The same applies in science, in sociology, in psychology. Surveys affect answers. Studies change participants. The more we observe reality, the more we bend it. But it goes deeper. What if yourself is also under observation? By others, by society, even by your own inner narrator. You're never truly unobserved, never truly objective. So who are you when no one is watching? Do you even know? Or has every version of you already been shaped by the gaze of others, of science, of your own memory? This is the observer's paradox. It invites you to ask, can we ever access reality unfiltered? Or does consciousness come with a price? The inability to separate what is from what we see. In a world where attention changes the observed, truth itself becomes fluid. And maybe the moment you noticed this paradox, you changed too.
The Sleeping Beauty problem. Imagine this. You're part of a thought experiment. A coin will be flipped. If it lands heads, you will be woken up on Monday, just once. If it lands tails, you'll be woken up on both Monday and Tuesday. But after each awakening, your memory will be erased. You won't know what day it is. You won't remember if you've been woken before. Now, you wake up. You don't know if it's Monday or Tuesday. You don't know if the coin landed heads or tails. All you know is you're awake. So what's the probability the coin landed heads? Is it 1/2 because a fair coin was flipped? Or is it 1/3 because if it were tails, you'd be woken twice, making this moment more likely under tails? This is the paradox. It's not about numbers. It's about identity, knowledge, and belief under uncertainty. The moment you awaken, not knowing when or why, you become a different kind of observer. An observer in a world where your memory can't anchor you, where time has no meaning, where the self becomes a flicker between moments. Some say it's a lesson in Bayesian reasoning, how we update belief with limited data. Others say it's a lesson in futility, that some questions have no stable answer because consciousness itself warps the question. But think deeper. How much of your own life is just waking up and assuming you know the context? How often are you making decisions, confident in your own past, while your memory, your certainty, may be wrong, selective, or even missing? The Sleeping Beauty problem isn't just a philosophical riddle. It's a mirror. Because maybe, just maybe, you're waking up in your own loop. A life where belief and memory dance around each other, and you're not as sure about the coin toss as you think. Wigner's friend. You stand outside a sealed laboratory. Inside that room, your friend, a scientist, rational, careful, precise. They are conducting a quantum experiment. The setup is familiar. A particle, in superposition, both spin up and spin down. But now something different. This time, the observer isn't you, it's them. They open the apparatus. They look. They see one result. From their perspective, the wave function collapses. From their perspective, the universe chooses. But you haven't opened the door yet. To you, the lab is closed. Your friend, their body, their brain, their very thoughts, all remain inside a box you haven't looked into. According to quantum mechanics, if it's truly universal, everything behind that door is still entangled, still superposed, still undecided. So here's the puzzle. From your point of view, your friend is both someone who saw spin up and someone who saw spin down. Not just the particle, but your friend themselves is in a state of quantum uncertainty. They are both, until you observe. And suddenly, reality begins to fracture. If your friend sees a result and you haven't observed them yet, then what is true? Are their memories real? Do they feel certain about what they saw? Do they even exist as a singular they in this moment? The implications are staggering. It means your friend's consciousness, their very awareness, may not be absolute. It may depend on you, on your observation, on your mind. So we ask, who collapses whose reality? Is the observer inside the experiment, or is it the one watching from above? Wigner's friend suggests something terrifying and beautiful, that consciousness might be layered, that minds may exist in entangled tiers, that the truth you believe might not exist until someone else believes in you. And if your friend is just a variable in your perception, then what does that make you in someone else's? Is the world being dreaming or dreaming itself? You see, this isn't just a paradox about physics. It's a paradox about existence, about you. Because if your friend doesn't become real until you open the door, who's to say someone else isn't still waiting to open yours? The brain in a vat paradox. What if everything you see, everything you feel, everything you know was nothing more than an illusion fed into your consciousness by a machine? The brain in a vat paradox asks a question that shakes the foundations of knowledge, perception, and existence itself. Imagine this. Somewhere in a sterile lab, your brain floats in a vat, suspended in a clear fluid, sustained by electrodes. These electrodes deliver electrical signals crafted to mimic your entire reality: sight, sound, taste, memory, thought. Your friends, your home, your past, all of it fabricated by code. And here's the twist. If this were true, how would you ever know? The world you experience feels real because your brain makes it real. But if your brain could be tricked, completely and convincingly, then your sense of certainty becomes untethered. You could be walking down a street or sipping coffee with a friend, and none of it exists. You're just a brain, in a vat, dreaming. The paradox arises not just from the possibility of illusion, but from its indistinguishability. There may be no evidence within the illusion that proves it's an illusion. Every sensation, every memory could be manufactured. In that case, what separates reality from simulation? What distinguishes truth from deception? This thought experiment, like Descartes' evil demon or the Matrix's simulated world, forces us to ask, what can be known with certainty? If all our knowledge depends on our senses, and those senses can be manipulated, then isn't all our knowledge suspect? It's not just a philosophical trick. It touches real anxieties in neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality. As we grow closer to simulating worlds indistinguishable from our own, the brain in a vat shifts from paradox to prophecy. And perhaps the scariest part is this: you don't need a machine. Your brain already fabricates your reality every second. It edits, distorts, ignores, and invents. So maybe you've always been in the vat. It just didn't need wires. So the next time you question your memory or feel the world flicker just slightly, ask yourself, is this real or just what I've been fed? The simulation hypothesis. What if your entire life, every conversation, every memory, every sensation is running inside a simulation? Not a metaphor, a literal programmed reality. One where you, me, and everything you know are just lines of code executing in a vast machine. This idea isn't just science fiction anymore. It's a serious proposal discussed by physicists, philosophers, and computer scientists. Nick Bostrom famously argued, if advanced civilizations can run realistic simulations of their ancestors, and if they choose to do so, then it's statistically more likely we are one of those simulations than the original reality. Think about it. We already simulate weather, economics, even consciousness in rudimentary ways. With increasing computing power, it's plausible that one day someone or something will simulate entire worlds. Billions of minds, unaware they're artificial. So how would you know if you're in one? The simulation hypothesis suggests you wouldn't. You'd wake up, brush your teeth, cry, laugh, fall in love, all without realizing every atom around you is synthetic. Your brain, your thoughts, even your doubts, pre-rendered in code. But this raises a disturbing question. If reality is fake, what does that make you? Are you a player, a character, a byproduct of another being's curiosity? Worse, what if the simulation can be ended, not by death, but by deletion? If the one running the simulation decides it's time to stop the experiment, everything vanishes, instantly. No warning, no afterlife, just off. Some believe déjà vu, glitches in physics, or uncanny coincidences might be signs of code breaking down, small cracks in the illusion. Others argue it doesn't matter. If your feelings, your struggles, your dreams feel real, then they are real, at least to you. But the truth is, you may never know. You could be the only real one, or no one is. You could be living in base reality, or just a well-coded echo of someone else's memory. So tonight, as you lie in bed staring at the ceiling, ask yourself, does it matter if it's real, if it feels real? And if you ever meet your creator, what will you say? Gödel's incompleteness theorem. There once was a dream in the minds of mathematicians that one day all of mathematics could be neatly boxed, tied with logic, and made complete. A grand system, perfect, flawless, unshakable. But then came Gödel and broke the box. In 1931, Kurt Gödel published a proof that shattered the foundations of logic. His first incompleteness theorem says this: in any consistent formal system powerful enough to contain basic arithmetic, there will always be true statements that cannot be proven within the system itself. In simple terms, if your system is consistent, it cannot be complete. And if it's complete, it cannot be consistent. Let that echo in your mind for a moment. Even the purest logical system harbors statements that are true but forever unprovable. There are truths that exist but cannot be touched, like stars you can see but never reach. Then came his second incompleteness theorem, which deepens the void. No such system can prove its own consistency. Imagine writing a perfect book of all truths, and then discovering that you can never use that book to prove it doesn't contain lies. That is the paradox Gödel left us. But how did he do it? Gödel constructed a sentence that essentially says, "This statement is not provable." If it were provable, the system would be inconsistent, because it proves a falsehood. If it's not provable, then it is a true statement that can't be proven, exactly what the theorem predicts: a self-referential ghost in the machine. This is not just a math problem. It's a cosmic whisper that no matter how vast our knowledge, there will always be a boundary we cannot cross. There is no final theory, no final truth, no system that contains everything. Even the language of the universe folds in on itself. Gödel showed us that uncertainty isn't just a flaw. It's a built-in feature of reality. It humbles logic. It defies completeness. And it means that every system, eventually, contains a paradox. If truth lives beyond proof, what else might live beyond knowledge? The infinite library paradox. Imagine a library that contains every possible book ever. Not just every book written, but every book that could ever be written. Every possible combination of letters, punctuation, and spaces across a finite number of pages. This is the infinite library, sometimes referred to as Borges' library, a concept introduced by author Jorge Luis Borges. A vast labyrinth of hexagonal rooms, each lined with bookshelves, each shelf stacked with volumes that differ by just a single character. Inside this library exists a book that tells the true history of your life. Another one records an alternate reality where you never existed. Somewhere there's a perfect novel never yet read, and right next to it, pure gibberish. For every meaningful idea, there are millions of meaningless variations. This isn't just fiction. It's a metaphor for a deep paradox in information theory and epistemology. If all possible truths and falsehoods exist together, how can we find meaning? In this infinite sea of possibilities, how do we separate signal from noise? How can knowledge exist when it's buried beneath an avalanche of nonsense? This paradox challenges the very foundation of understanding. In a digital age where we are flooded with content, some true, most irrelevant, the infinite library mirrors our struggle. Every post, every theory, every idea is just one book in a Babel-like network.
Some philosophers argue that if every possible truth exists, truth itself becomes meaningless without context. Others find hope that within the noise, something coherent and beautiful might emerge, by chance or by choice. In this labyrinth, are we searching for knowledge or just trying not to drown in its shadow?
The measure problem in cosmology. In a universe that may be infinite, with infinite galaxies, infinite stars, and perhaps infinite versions of you, how do we define probability? This is the heart of the measure problem in cosmology. Imagine a universe that's expanding forever, an eternal inflation. As space stretches and births new regions faster than we can observe, it gives rise to a troubling paradox. If everything that can happen, and does so infinitely many times, then how can we meaningfully assign probabilities to anything? If there are infinite Earths, infinite versions of humanity, infinite versions of you, some making this exact same choice, others choosing differently, then which one is you? And what does it mean to say there's a 70% chance of rain tomorrow if in 70% of Earths it rains and in the remaining 30% it doesn't? How do we compare infinities? This isn't just a philosophical trick. In cosmology, probabilities are used to predict events, test theories, and understand why our universe has the conditions it does. But in a multiverse filled with endless possibilities, the very notion of likelihood begins to break down. Suppose a theory predicts an infinite number of observers like you in different contexts. How do you weigh your existence among them? Why do you find yourself here, in this timeline, this body, this fragile moment? Some scientists propose cutoffs, artificial ways to slice infinity into manageable parts. Others invoke anthropic principles. Maybe we're only here because the conditions allow us to exist. But that feels circular, unsatisfying, like explaining existence by pointing at existence. The measure problem whispers something deeper. That our intuition, our tools of logic and probability, might be fundamentally unfit to grasp a reality this vast. Maybe the universe isn't broken. Maybe it's our questions that are too small. The Boltzmann brain paradox. What if you're just a brain? A lone mind, spontaneously formed by chance in the void of the universe, complete with a full set of false memories, perceptions, and emotions. A brain drifting in chaos. This is the Boltzmann brain paradox. And it doesn't just challenge what's real, it challenges whether anything is real at all. In the late 19th century, physicist Ludwig Boltzmann tried to explain the order of the universe through thermodynamics. He theorized that even in a state of maximum entropy, complete disorder, tiny regions of order might arise by chance, simply as statistical fluctuations. Most of these would be tiny and meaningless, but given infinite time and infinite space, something remarkable becomes likely. A full human brain, formed by random particles assembling in the exact right way for just long enough to have a thought. Just long enough to think, I am alive. Here's where the paradox begins. If such a Boltzmann brain is statistically more probable than an entire low-entropy universe like ours, then shouldn't it be more likely that you are one of those brains? Floating alone. Imagining this moment, dreaming up the stars, the earth, your past, because those memories are easier to fake than for the entire universe to exist in coherent form. It's a haunting thought, because if you are a Boltzmann brain, then nothing around you is real, not even this video. Philosophically, the paradox forces us to confront the reliability of our observations. If self-aware, simulated minds are more likely than evolved biological ones, how can we ever trust our perception of time, space, or even other people?
Some physicists argue that any viable theory of the universe must exclude Boltzmann brains, because otherwise our very science collapses under self-doubt. A theory that predicts most observers are hallucinations cannot explain reality. And yet, if we truly live in an infinite multiverse, one where entropy wins and time has no end, then Boltzmann brains become not just possible, but inevitable. So ask yourself, are you? Or are you just a spark, a ghost of probability, thinking you're watching a video in a universe that never existed?
The paradox of everything. Imagine you're holding a mirror to reality, not to reflect it, but to fold it inward. The paradox of everything is not a single contradiction, it's a convergence, where logic, existence, time, space, and self all loop back into themselves. A recursive knot of understanding that refuses to be untied. Let's begin with the idea of a theory of everything, the holy grail of physics. A single framework that explains all the forces, all the particles, all of reality in one elegant equation. But what if that theory, once found, can't explain itself? This is where Gödel knocks on the door. According to his incompleteness theorems, any system complex enough to contain arithmetic cannot be both complete and consistent. That means any theory of everything would either have truths it can't prove or contradictions it can't resolve. A total explanation of reality might not be possible from within reality. But it gets deeper. Suppose we simulate the universe perfectly. Every particle, every law, every quantum twitch. And then within that simulation, an intelligence, maybe like you, begins to ask, what is everything? They map their world, they build physics, they find beauty. But they're trapped. Because the simulation can't reveal the machinery outside it. It can't explain why it's running at all. Here we stumble into the simulation hypothesis. What if we are in one too? Then the everything we observe is just a subset, a layer. Reality turtles all the way down or all the way up. And with each layer, the question becomes not what is real, but where does the boundary of knowing lie? Add to this the anthropic principle, the idea that the universe must be compatible with conscious life because we are here to observe it. That sounds reasonable until you realize it's circular. The universe exists because we observe it, but we exist because the universe allows us to. So who's watching whom? And if multiple universes exist, as many worlds quantum mechanics suggests, then maybe everything isn't a singular structure, but an eternal cascade of branching outcomes. In one, you're reading this. In another, you're not even born. In another, there's no you and no everything to define it all. So, what is the paradox? It's this. To know everything is to define the limits of knowledge. But if knowledge can't know itself completely, then everything can never be complete. The more we try to define all of existence, the more it slips away. Every answer spawns a question. Every question exposes a boundary. And in trying to hold the everything, we realize it may never have been meant to be held. Tegmark's mathematical universe hypothesis. Imagine for a moment that everything you see, feel, and think, the galaxies, the atoms, your thoughts, are all not just described by mathematics, but are mathematics. This is the bold idea behind Tegmark's mathematical universe hypothesis, proposed by physicist Max Tegmark, suggesting that our universe isn't just governed by mathematical laws, it is a mathematical structure itself. Let's take a step back. In physics, math has always been a precise language for describing the universe. Gravity, quantum mechanics, electromagnetism, all expressed through beautiful, elegant equations. But Tegmark asks the deeper question, why is math so unreasonably effective? Why does it describe reality so perfectly? Could it be because the universe is fundamentally mathematical? In this view, everything around you, from your heartbeat to the motion of distant galaxies, exists not because of some physical stuff, but because of mathematical relationships. But here's the twist. If all mathematical structures exist, then every logically possible universe exists too. According to Tegmark, our universe is just one of an infinite set of mathematical structures, each existing in a vast level 4 multiverse. In some, time might not flow. In others, physics might operate with completely alien constants. And in many, there are no observers, no consciousness at all. We just happen to exist in one where conscious beings can arise and reflect on this idea. It's a paradox of identity and existence. If we are part of a math structure, what does it mean to be? Is your consciousness just the outcome of mathematical complexity? And if infinite structures exist, how do we define real? Critics argue it's unfalsifiable. There's no way, currently, to test or disprove this hypothesis. But supporters say it offers a radical unification of physics and philosophy, stripping away the need for why and leaving only what is. So, next time you stare at the stars or wonder about the nature of being, ask yourself, are we living in a universe or as one equation?
30 paradoxes, each a crack in the surface of logic, reason, or reality itself. You've journeyed from the simple to the impossible, from barbers and envelopes to brains adrift in vats and the terrifying silence of the Boltzmann universe. Each paradox doesn't give you answers. It leaves you with questions, deeper, stranger, and sometimes unanswerable. But maybe that's the point. As we drift away from this iceberg, let it melt slowly in your thoughts. Let the fragments settle somewhere deep, in that quiet part of your mind, where wonder and confusion meet. And maybe, just maybe, the next time something doesn't make sense, you'll smile. And remember, the universe never promised to be understandable, only paradoxical. Thank you for staying. Rest well and dream deeply.